Well, Dave, welcome back to the Flower Podcast.
Hi there, Scott. It's great to be back again.
As I just said to you a minute ago, I was listening back to our first episode that we did. Was it? I don't know, a little over a year ago, maybe.
Maybe it's
And
been a while.
yeah, and I was like, I can't believe how much stuff was packed in that. So we're not going to go through all that again. If you want to listen to that episode, we will put a link to it down below in the show notes. So that's another opportunity to get more great information from Dave. But Dave, I know you work for Ball Colorlink. So why
Right.
don't you tell us just briefly what you do for them?
Do a lot of stuff. I'm technically a Ball Colorlink sales team account development rep, which means I deal with cut flower growers all across the country as their sales rep. But I also do a lot of stuff behind the scenes. Like I just finished making a cut flower plug list, taking all our different suppliers, putting them into one book. Taking it was probably, I don't know, 100,000 lines of spreadsheets and put it down to about 110 pages worth from probably 1,000 pages to weed out all the impatiens and petunias and things that cut flower growers don't want. So I do that kind of stuff on the side, so to speak, for Ball. I also every month do another training video for the customer service team, and also for customers can see it later. We posted on the Cut Flower webpage at Ball Seed. I work with Andrew Lee a little bit on finding new things to sell to cut flower growers, new products and different things.
Wow.
So it's not just the sales aspect; it's all kinds of other stuff too.
Sure. Well, that's one thing about Ball. I remember when we were at the ASCFG conference and you guys had your display out there, and I'm like, it's like a library of resources for your customers.
Yes. So many catalogs and so many vendors and growers that we work with.
Yeah, it was amazing. Well, one of the things I always, when I have the opportunity to chat with you, I just want to dive into obviously the world of cut flowers. Obviously, we talked a lot about some specific things, but now it's interesting. Now that I am back again buying for a wholesale company, I've had the opportunity to work with a lot of local growers, which I'm really excited about, that they're
Very
selling
good.
to a wholesaler and we're able to help handle all the logistics for them on that side. But the one thing I've had a lot of people approach, and one thing that I am noticing more and more, and that's why it spawned this conversation, was just some inconsistencies and pain points where I'm having to kind of help coach, which I don't have a problem doing, but helping coach. But I feel like if the people I work with get the benefit of me coaching them kind of these different standards and what to think about. There's a lot of other people that would probably love to learn about this, and I couldn't think of anybody better to ask but you.
Yeah, I think a big thing of that is that a lot of growers don't know how many stems should be in a bunch, how long the stem should be, how big the head of the flower has to be. You can pick a coxcomb when it's an inch across, or leave it in the field for 3 more weeks and it's 3 inches across. And you want the 3 inch flower, you don't want the little 1 inch golf ball size. So they just need to wait and let it grow longer. Same thing of when do you pick a delphinium? When do you pick a dahlia? How
Yeah.
far open does it need to be when it goes to the wholesaler or to your regular florist customers? And it's different from selling a flower to a wholesaler, to a florist, and even to a direct to the consumer farmer's market. Farmer's market, they want the lily or the dahlia open. At a wholesale, you don't want the dahlia wide open. You never want a lily open. So it's just a different market, a different approach to how and when you cut those flowers.
I totally agree. And the other thing I thought was really interesting was, like, we had this great lady who really specializes in bulbs. And
Okay.
so she brought me, I bought some tulips from her, and the very first batch I got had no foliage on it. So it looked real small
Empty.
and empty. Exactly. Now the heads were beautiful and the varieties she grew were amazing, but I'm like, why did you take all the foliage off? And she said, well, the florist I sold to said that's the way they wanted them. That's the only way they wanted them. And I'm like, gosh.
No, that's a florist take my favorite. You should sell a tulip with 1 or 2 leaves on it.
Yeah.
It's just like Lisianthus. One time I had somebody come to my farm for pick your own flowers for a wedding, and I wasn't paying attention. They got the Lisianthus, picked every single leaf off of the Lisianthus. And it's like, why did you do that? It's the same thing. You wouldn't do that for a flower selling to the wholesaler. You leave the leaves on it. You strip the bottom that's going to be in the water, but the rest of the leaves you leave on it. Unless it's something like a hydrangea, where you should take off almost all the leaves so the water goes to the flower and not to the leaves.
Sure.
Every crop's a
Sure.
little bit different.
Right. Well, and too, when I thought about the tulips, I'm like, that's like free foliage for a flower
Yeah,
shop.
yes. Yeah, because you put 2 dozen tulips in a vase, you don't need any greens if they have the leaves on them.
Yeah.
It's ready to go. You don't have to
Yeah.
add fern or anything else.
Amazing.
Yeah. So she didn't bring leaves she brought leaves the next time, right?
Yeah, so then we kind of talked. I showed her some things like we got from other places in the world, and I'm showing her the value that, plus you're saving money because you're not spending labor on it, right?
Right. Yeah.
And anyway, and so she got it, and the next time they were flawless, and I think we
Very
sold
good.
just about every one of them, and it was great. So
Very good.
yeah. So all of this kind of spawned these particular topics I wanted to kind of dive into, and I'm sure, knowing me and you together, that there will be a few rabbit trails along the way, which
Oh yeah.
which everybody loves. So we're
Sidetrack.
good.
That's fine.
So I think the first thing I kind of wanted to talk about, and I have these in probably a different order, but is what you already touched on, which is like a standard or a uniformity. Like, is there a good way for people to learn, or a place to learn? What does that mean for each flower?
Yeah. The ASCFG does have their post-harvest handling and care book, but I don't think it has how many stems go in a bunch and how tall they're supposed to be. I think the USDA at one point had standards, but it was for things like, roses and gladiolas and something else, 50 or 80 years ago. I don't think there's anything new
Right.
that tells the grower what the wholesaler wants. I don't know of any such list.
Yeah. Yeah. I always like to tell people, maybe take a visit to your local wholesale house.
Right. Yeah. To go and see it. Or you can even see it even if you go to the grocery store. You see that the lilies are 36 inches or 30 inches tall. You see the length of the sunflowers. You can see it there, or at the wholesaler to see what they're buying and what they're using.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
because nothing's worse than taking a flower that has a 30-inch stem and cutting it down to 18 inches because you decrease the value of that flower and you've lowered the
Absolutely.
price you can charge for it.
Absolutely. Well, and I think too, when it comes to cut stage, I know this week I received a bunch, and they have different names, so you can feel free to make sure you correct me, please.
Okay.
I always call them French marigolds, but it's those
Okay.
smaller kind of burgundy and orange ones,
Right.
and there's
More like
different
almost
ones.
bedding plant type of plant.
Well,
But they're taller, but they're smaller flowers.
Correct,
Right.
correct. And it's a great way to bring in those burgundy tones and some other things.
Right.
Well, I got these, I mean, they must have been at least 24 inches tall.
Okay.
They were really, really nice, tall, full, but I don't even think that each bunch had 4 blooms per bunch. So
you were picking in the bud stage?
I guess there weren't even buds that I thought were viable, honestly. It was a little frustrating. But
yeah.
So that's, again, I'm like, it depends on the flower. So let's talk about like things that right now, like with dahlias. What do you recommend for dahlias?
Most dahlias going through the wholesale chain, I'm pretty sure you'll agree, are in bunches of 5, because you get something big, either a big decorative or especially a cafe au lait. You can't put 10 of those in a bunch. So they're 5 in a bunch, and sometimes the cafe au lait and the big dinner place is sold individually. Just because you can't bunch 5 of them together without damaging them.
Yeah, absolutely. And then stem length. I mean, that can vary a lot too. Yeah.
There's so many new growers who are afraid to cut a tall stem because they're losing 2 side shoots. But that's what you have to do for dahlias. Every flower you pick, you're taking off 2 side shoots. But when you pick the tall flowers, they're going to grow back tall again. So it's the way you do it. You can't pick an 8-inch dahlia stems, because all you'll ever have is 8-inch dahlia stems, and that's not what you want.
Yeah, because I don't think people realize that's how you get the long stems.
Yes, dahlias, zinnias, the longer you cut them, the taller they grow back.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's like, how do they know? Yeah. I know I got these marigolds behind me, and I was processing them, and I was amazed at the breaks in them. Like there's, like the branching, and a lot of these had 3 to 4 blooms per stem. Not all of them, but a lot of them did.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like sometimes too, when people get, I'm trying to think of another good, like Lysianthus, for example. Mm-hmm. Like if you, so I'm going to jump out. See, I'm already doing it, Dave.
That's fine. But I know what you're getting at.
Okay.
You're getting at where you have stems that have so many flowers on it, you put 10 of them in a bunch and it's too big. And there's some flowers that are sold by the I'm going to say by the grower's bunch, not always 10 stems in a bunch. And that'll be things like spray mums are done that way.
Yeah.
Lisianthus can be that way. It's not always 10 stems in a bunch. If they're really full branchy stems, you might get 7 or 8.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's funny you said that because with Lisianthus, I know we had a local grower that she was bringing them in. They had lots of great branching, and I actually told her 5 stems
Yeah,
because they
they're so
were a
big.
good full bunch. And yeah, I mean, you could cut these lower sides branches off and make a 10 stem bunch, but I mean, why? The 5 stem was great.
Right.
So yeah.
And your
Excuse me.
florist is going to take that and take off the side stems and put them in a short vase and use the taller center stem for another one, another arrangement. They'll all
Sure.
get used.
Sure. So are there flowers out there that longer stems aren't better because maybe they're more brittle or something?
I can't think of anything off the top of my head that you don't want to have too tall. You don't want to be going to 36, 40-inch stem on most things other than like lilies and glads that can need to be that tall. But like anything else, 24 inches is usually tall enough for a marigold, a zinnia, lisianthus. You might get taller, but it's not usually needed.
Sure. Sure. And then I think too, as far as quality, when we were up in Boston, I think you had to leave, but we went to the tour at Five Fork Farms
Right.
and listening to Grace talk about what they discarded
Right.
as for quality issues.
You every
Yeah,
flower you sell has to be perfect. It can't have a bug bite, can't have a crease in the petal, can't be short, can't have a really wicked crooked stem. They should all be perfect. And the ones that aren't perfect, either go on the compost pile or go on your kitchen table. As soon as you start selling inferior flowers, you're just hurting your business in the long run. No different than if Dunkin' Donuts was selling stale donuts a couple days a week. You're gonna stop going to Dunkin' Donuts. You can't have bad flowers a couple days a week. They got to always be perfect.
yeah. I think that's overwhelming to people sometimes.
Yeah, it's hard to spend all that time growing those flowers, sometimes 3 or 4 months, and then have to say it's going on the compost pile, or you
Hmm.
just leave it in the field because it's no good. But sometimes that's the best thing you need to do for your business is don't try and sell the thing that's not perfect because it's just going to hurt yourself in the long run.
Right. We just released an episode today with Steve Coffer, who is developing his sunflower. He's Sunflower Steve.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And one of the points we were talking about, I'm curious what you think about this, is he was talking about growing like almost twice as many sunflowers that he needed to
Oh,
guarantee that he had enough to fulfill his purchase orders.
yes, definitely. Yeah. You should always grow more. For sunflowers, I figured 80% you're going to sell, the other 20% you give to the bugs, or you're just not going to pick, or it's going to have too many blooming at once. But 50%, if you've got to do that, that's what you have to do. I know a grower who does dahlias, and one year he had an order for 5,000 cafe au lait and obviously didn't have them. So he said he'll never be short cafe au lait like that again. He grows 1,000 plants a year now just for
Wow.
that one order. He lost a $15,000 order because he didn't have the plants. So yeah,
Yeah.
you plant a lot.
And so and roughly what does, and just to put that in perspective, like what does like the cafe, like what does that cost?
The actual root or tuber,
Yeah. I mean just
they,
ballpark it because I know.
well, you can buy liners, which are rooted cuttings of cafe au lait for about $1, $1.10 each. And then you get the time to grow it for the 3 or 3.5 months before it starts to bloom. You can buy a tuber clump that comes from Edney for about $1.20, I think they are this year. And then there's other farmers that sell dahlias that might be in the $4 or $5 range for a tuber.
Sure.
Um, but the cost of the tuber, wherever you buy it, is small compared to the amount of effort you put into growing it. You're going to
Right.
spend more money growing it than you did buying that product to grow it. Same thing with sunflowers. You can buy a sunflower seed for 2 cents each, maybe 3 cents. And you can spend a lot more than that growing it and harvesting it and hauling it to wherever you're selling it.
Right.
The
Right.
input is usually the smallest price, your smallest cost.
I guess I just think what is and that's a great point because when you think about like how much extra did it cost him to grow enough cafe au laits to not have to miss a $15,000 order?
Right. But then I think he's still able to sell those, just has more available every week to his other customers.
Right,
But he
right.
always has that option to have somebody come and say, I need 500 of this dahlia. But he grows most of his dahlias that way. I'm talking about Michael Genovese with Summer Dreams, who grows gazillion dahlias, but he doesn't grow 20 or 50 of something. He grows 400 of it.
Right.
He doesn't grow anything in small quantities.
Oh, it's funny. I was thinking that too. You were talking about.
Yeah. Yep.
Oh,
Great
it's
guy.
amazing. Yeah, amazing. We need to get him on the podcast sometime.
Yeah, he would be a very good one to come on and talk with dahlias with you. Very
Uh,
good.
I would love that.
Put his name
Um,
down.
and so yeah, I will for sure. I think too, one of the things it's so hard is understanding cut stage. Um, I know, like I had people bring me sunflowers this year, some that were wide open and
Oh,
some that might be open in a week.
right.
Um, again, and maybe I just keep asking the same question, and these are all revolving around, where's and maybe just asking other farmers or going to farm markets, seeing. I'm just trying to think where is a good place to kind of figure out what is the good cut stage for flowers.
Well, that post-harvest handling book from the ASCFG does give the proper harvest stage.
Oh,
So that
okay.
is a place to start. It's a $60 or $70 textbook. It's huge, hundreds and hundreds of pages and photos. That's the place to start to know when to harvest the flower. But then, like I said earlier, whether you're selling a flower to the wholesaler, a sunflower, or at the farmer's market, it's two different harvest stages. We should harvest them the same, but it's okay to have them a little bit more open at the farmer's market. But you at the wholesale, you never want a sunflower is totally open because this can get destroyed before it goes out your door,
Right.
and you'll never sell it.
Do you feel like a lot of times, I know when I've been to other countries and I see flowers, like I think about, I was in Ecuador one time and there's all these people selling flowers on the street corners or different places. And I asked, I was asking some of the farmers there, they have huge productions. I'm like, how does that work out? And they were talking about how a lot of times their seconds are what go to that market, to that
Right.
local market.
Either they're seconds, or it might be that they not necessarily second quality, but they have too many available. Because they might
Yes.
grow down in Ecuador, they're growing, plant 10,000 sunflowers every day or something like that. And they might just have a glut of blooms a certain week, and they've sold them all to their exporter. They're going to the wholesalers or the grocery stores, but they have an extra 10,000 sitting around. And that's what would go to the local market. It's not necessarily seconds as in bad, but seconds as in their regular customers didn't need them that week.
Sure, absolutely. That's a good point. Do you feel like when our domestic, when we have flowers growers here and they have flowers that maybe don't fit the bill for quality for a florist or a wholesaler, like to put those in bouquets and sell at the farmers markets are fine?
Yeah, you can do that as long as the quality is still good. It might be a shorter flower, a shorter stem. The flower might be a little bit smaller. Sometimes you get sunflowers that either you didn't have enough water, just bad weather, didn't get the big size or little skinny stems. It's
Hmm.
fine to put those in a mixed bouquet as long as you're still picking them at the right stage. But your
Right.
wholesaler doesn't want a sunflower that has a stem the size of a pencil and a flower the size of a small Gerber daisy or even a regular daisy. The wholesaler doesn't want those, but you can
Hmm.
easily sell those at a farmer's market in a mixed bouquet or even by the stem at a farmer's market.
Yeah, because they're perfect for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. Well, one of the things I also think about is um, knowing what to grow.
Yeah.
I run into this a lot as well. How
Yeah.
do you approach this with new people?
Oh, the first question is, where do you plan to sell? And I like to tell people, don't plant anything until you have an idea of where you're going to sell, because planting to sell at a farmer's market or a roadside stand or even at the end of your driveway is very different than what you would grow and sell to a florist or to a wholesaler. Because at a farmer's market, they want the bright colors. You go to a florist, they want all the muted soft colors of ranunculus because they're doing weddings. At a farmer's market, you want the bright yellows, reds, and oranges. It's just a different customer base. You'll sell some of the lighter colors, but florists can sell very few of the bright colors just because they're using them for events and things that they don't want those, bright yellows and oranges in the spring when the ranunculus are blooming. And then if you're going for a wholesale, it's still a little bit different. You might not want the regular ranunculus. You might want the clone type. They're a little bit bigger flower, a little more expensive to grow, but you're going to get more money for them. And the wholesaler can charge more for them because the ones actually grown started from tissue culture. They're more expensive, but they give you a bigger and better flower. So you need
Sure.
to know where you're selling, who you're selling to, or who you plan to sell to, before you even order your seeds and your plants. because like I said, you don't want to be growing a whole bunch of brown sunflowers to sell to the wholesaler. You're not going to want many of those. You want the traditional standard sunflowers. You might sell more of the brown and the mahogany color ones at a farmer's market, probably not many to a florist. So you got to know what your end consumer is going to be, who it is, before you start deciding what to grow.
Right, right. Well, and I think, yeah, I'm really glad you brought up that ranunculus example because I ranunculus is one of those flowers I love. I mean, it's just so wonderful. And I feel like that when most of North America's season comes into play, the whole world is flooded with ranunculus.
Right.
And it's, I mean, they just come from everywhere, and they're coming from South America, from Holland, from California.
When the local ones are growing, when the local growers have theirs ready, they're coming from everywhere.
Right.
Especially, and then the California ones are usually the Tecolote, a little bit different than either the French or the Italian ones. So they're all a little bit different. I know a grower that grows all of them. I'm not sure if that's the Tecolote, but she can charge a lot more for the clone type from tissue culture because it's a bigger, thicker stem or bigger flower and just a different product. And then you throw in the butterfly ranunculus, which is a totally different animal. You know, it's ranunculus, but it doesn't look like ranunculus. It doesn't grow like it.
Well, and I just feel like if you're trying to get into that market, I know I had a conversation with someone about that, and I was just like, yeah, if you can grow these, I can definitely use them because, you know, the other one becomes a pricing game, and it's just, I hate to have that conversation. So, yeah.
Right. If you're selling the same thing and then competing on price, nobody wins. You better have something that's a little bit different that you don't have the competition. You can charge the price you need to get, whether you sell into the florist, the farmer's market, or to the wholesaler, that you determine the price, not the market, so to speak.
Right. Exactly. I always think this too, because I always have this conversation. And I'm curious what you think about this. Obviously Celosia, Zinnia, sunflowers. Those are the three easiest ones. Those are the biggies. And when you are new to a market, there might already be a lot of people growing it, growing those. Not that there isn't room for more, but do you find that there are some other biggies that maybe we should be talking about that might help people get into a market?
Yeah. Well, the other thing with the big three, sunflowers, zinnias, and celosias, a lot of the regular farmers, vegetable farmers, are also growing those. They're not going to grow Lysianthus. They're probably not going to grow asters and other things. They're definitely not going to grow callas or lilies. So if you grow those, you're not competing with the vegetable farmer who sometimes sells the flowers too cheap, and also sometimes the quality is the same. No different than if you had a flower grower selling tomatoes, they're probably not going to be the same as the vegetable growers. So it's better to concentrate on one or the other, or there are a few growers that do both really well, but a lot of times you have the vegetable farmers bringing in flowers that aren't quite up to par. But if you can grow something different, it'll definitely set you apart. If you grow the fancy dahlias, the fancy tulips, the better ranunculus, it just will give you the reputation in your neighborhood, whether it's for the farmer's market or the florist buying from you, that you're the one they want to buy their flowers from because yours are better and different. And again, like we said before, top quality all the time.
Yeah, such an incredible thing. I've seen that over and over and over again, and I think it's funny. I think it even amazes some of the farmers sometimes when, like I had one person who grows a lot of vegetables, and she came to me with Lizzie, and she grew the most amazing Lysianthus.
Okay.
And that's the person I was talking about earlier. And it was like, I was excited to get behind her and buy that product. And and then when we were flying through it, she, was very excited. People just don't realize there's other things out there.
Right.
Yeah.
The Lysianthus, the dahlias, so many different things that you can grow. A different crop that's not the top sunflowers, zinnias and cosmos or celosias.
Right. One of the things I know this time of year, it's a busy time for ordering plant material, and I love the analogy you gave me earlier about getting the orders in early, because that makes the difference between a wedding cake flower and a Twinkie flower.
Right. I like to say that if you think of ordering your plugs and plants for next spring like ordering a wedding cake, you don't go into the bakery 3 days before your wedding and hope to find the cake you want, because you might end up with Twinkies or cupcakes. So order in advance so the grower has time to grow it for you. I always like to say order your spring product, whether it's plugs, bare root, whatever, by Thanksgiving, and then you should be able to have it. Unless you're a farther southern grower, they might be needing stuff planted, shipped to you in January. Then you need to move it up a little bit even earlier. But definitely order in advance rather than last minute.
So
Because at
is
last
it
minute you get the leftovers.
right, right. So is everything right now sort of for spring? Is that available, or is it only certain things?
No, you can pretty much order everything for spring now, whether it's plugs, bare root, bulbs, seed, all that stuff is all available to order in the fall to get shipped to you in the spring.
I feel like every year there is some kind of a crop issue, a problem with something.
Always, always.
Is there
um,
anything in particular this year that's challenging for next?
eucalyptus is still a challenge. It's still my favorite variety, the silver drop, Gunny, Gunnii. It's still seed is not going to be available till late next summer of 2023. So obviously there's no plants for 2023. And this is still the result of the wildfires in Australia 2 or 3 years ago. And just those plants haven't recovered enough to start producing seed again.
Wow.
But that's the only thing I can think of that's a major problem. Occasionally you get where like one color snapdragons in a series might not be as available as you expect. And sometimes that can be just because the one grower bought 1,000,000 seeds and a big California or Canadian grower bought a whole lot of one color they weren't planning on. And that can mess up the supply chain.
For sure. Well, that's really interesting. What when people are planting crops and choosing things for the springs, are what do you feel like are sometimes the most profitable things? Because I think that's sometimes the hard part.
Well, the most profitable thing is whatever you can sell that for more than you paid to grow it. But that can change with the seasons. I know a lot of people do really great with tulips, but you got to sell every tulip you grow or you're going to lose money. If you plant 10,000 tulips and sell half of them, you probably lost money. You plant 10,000 tulips and sell 9,500 of them, you made good money as long as you're not charging $1 a stem, as long as you're charging a decent price. Ranunculus is almost always a really profitable one, a lot of high dollars per square foot because you got 4 plants a square foot and each plant puts out 6 flowers or 6 stems. You've got, 20, 24 stems in 1 square foot. So that's a really high return on the space. But it's also usually an expensive real estate because it's inside of a high tunnel, or even sometimes in a heated greenhouse if you're growing them to get them ready earlier for Valentine's Day. But ranunculus are great. The tulips for early season, the lowly sunflower. I always like to tell Lisa Ziegler's story. She bought a tractor with sunflowers in 1 year, paid for her tractor by just planting more sunflowers. You got to sell them all, but she planted enough sunflowers to pay for a tractor in 1 year. That's when she was in her what she calls her high volume growing for the florist and grocery store. Lysianthus can be great as long as you sell them and sell them at a decent price. You can't be selling Lysianthus for $7 or $8 a bunch. You should be selling for a couple dollars a stem, $18 or $20 to a florist, if not more. As long as you sell it for more than it costs you to grow it, you should make money on it.
Right.
But the trick is selling most of what you grow. There'll always be some leftovers that go in the compost pile you give away to friends or trade at the farmer's market for some tomatoes or watermelon from another grower. But you should aim to sell most of what you grow. And if you've got excess, just work a little harder and sell it. Sometimes it means just at a farmer's market, don't ever put stuff on sale because then you're just taking home half as much money. If you put everything half price, you make it so they got to still spend what they were going to spend and give them something extra. So instead of having, gladiolas half price because you have too many, have it where you buy a dozen, you get 3 free. So you're getting the money out of them for that dozen rather than them just buying, half a dozen because they're half price, or they might buy the whole dozen at half price, but you don't get any money out of it that way.
Yeah. And I always feel like when people start cutting, it's inevitably, it doesn't take very long at all. And that's what people like, well, where are your half special ones or one,
right.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. You don't want to I don't like to lower the price. I'd rather give them buy something, get something free. Because as soon as you lower the price and the glads are 75 cents this week because you have so many, they want to know why aren't they 75 cents next week? Right. And they expect that, especially if you have them on sale for several weeks.
Right.
Everybody knows you don't go to Kohl's and pay full price. I don't know if you have Kohl's where you're at, but everything's always on sale. You don't buy it. And you'll never get the full price if you always have it on sale or have it on sale too much.
Yeah. Yeah, I got a Kohl's and they suck you in and that's
but it's always got to if it's not on sale, you're not going to buy it because it's the crazy price on the sticker.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. You know, well, you touched on something a second ago with the ranunculus that made me think. You know, when I was trying to plan, and I never got good at this because I didn't have to. That wasn't my sole livelihood. But in trying to plan, like how much to plant of things, you know, when you're doing one cut wonders like certain celosia or sunflowers or
Right.
different things, you pretty much know what to plan on. But with crops like zinnias or the
The
ranunculus,
branching,
yeah,
the
all the
branching celosus, right?
yeah, and the reblooming things,
Right.
how do you figure out like, okay, I know I'm going to need like 20 bunches a week of something or 30 bunches a week of something. So how much do I plant? Can you walk us through that?
It's a tough decision or a tough calculation, but if say you want to make 30 CSA bouquets every week, you know you want to put 3 sunflowers in it, so you need 30 times 3, you need 90 sunflowers. You want to plant 150 just so you have extras. Things that are branching, you can figure something like a zinnia is going to give you a couple flowers a week. A branch in celosia might give you 10 flowers on that plant, but it's all in that little 2 or 3 week period. It's going to be a long time before they rebloom, where you should ideally have a second planting, a succession planting of celosia. Don't count on the branching out reblooming too much. But it's almost like you got to calculate backwards, and you say you want to have 100 stems, plant for 150. If they're single stem, one cut wonder kind of things like the sunflowers or a lily, although you don't want to be overplanting lilies because they're an expensive thing to grow. Or if it's something that branches, figure it's going to have 2 or 3 flowers a week, and use that as your number for the math to figure out how many to grow. But it's no set formula because everything's going to be a little bit different on everybody's farm. Like you could grow with a celosia in your farm and somebody in a different state. It's going to not be the same kind of branching, not going to be ready at the same time. It's just going to be a little bit different. So it's all experience from growing it on your farm. But I always like to say, always plant more than you think you need and just work a little harder selling it. Because nothing's worse than, you're selling to 6 florists and you can't make it to the last 3 because the first 3 florists bought everything you had. That's just not good for business. You could have sold a lot more. Or if you're at a farmer's market that's open from 9 to 1 and you're out of flowers at 11:30, you need to plant more stuff. And sometimes it takes 3 or 4 months or a year before we can correct that shortage. So I
Right.
always like to say it's better to have an overage of cheap stuff, sunflowers, zinnias, things that don't cost much to grow, than to run out. Because you can always work a little harder to sell them, but you can't real quick make more of them. It's a long process to grow more flowers when you don't have enough.
On that note, I think sometimes I also think about, and I've had this conversation with others in the past, but I really want to ask you this. How do you know, like when you're doing succession planting,
Mhm.
how to plan for that? Like with zinnias, I know a lot of times I feel like they're still producing,
Yeah.
or, you're just like, how much time between plantings do you?
Usually for something that's branches and reblooms, like the zinnia or the branching celosia, you'll plant them every 3 weeks. If it's
Okay.
something that's a one cut wonder, like a sunflower or even a gladiola, you're going to plant those every week. So you never run out of them. You always got a consistent supply. And even with the sunflowers, you religiously every Monday plant 500 the same variety all summer. At some point, they're going to speed up a little bit and bunch up and have too many, and then they're going to slow down just because the day length changes. Different water and different rain, different weather. But the plan is to plant them every week, and most other things every 3 weeks, which means you usually only get like 3 plantings of things like zinnias or celosias, because that's every 3 weeks. That's 9 weeks from the first one to the last one. That's 2.5 months almost. It's too late to plant them now because you can't
Right.
be planting succession planting, celosias in the middle of August. They're not going to bloom before it freezes.
Yeah, I was talking with a farmer about that, and he was getting some plugs in of celosia. I want to say it was early in September, and he said, "No,
Ooh,
they told me that they're going." Yeah, and I said, "I don't think so, because once that
unless he's
starts,
in Florida, Texas.
yeah," and he's not. And I
Yeah,
just thought, between day length, it getting
right,
cold, and those are two things celosia does not like. So,
right. Yeah, either
yeah,
one, right. They want long days and hot.
yeah, and who knows? They may end up being like 3 inches high when they bloom. Who knows? But
if
if they
if
even
they even
get,
bloom. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
I hope I didn't sell them the plants because I wouldn't let somebody buy them that late.
No, it wasn't you. It wasn't you.
Okay.
And that, you know what? I'm really glad you just said that, because that's one of the things about having a relationship with
Oh,
a company that you do business with all the time is that they've got your back. Talk
yes.
to me about that.
Well, my biggest thing is always when I want the customer or the grower to be successful so they come back and buy again. But it's also so they're just successful. I want people to plant the crops whether it's seeds or plugs or that we get that they order through me or from Ball to be successful, grow them, sell them, make a profit, make some money, both so they can buy it again, but also so they can enjoy life. Go on vacation, buy that new tractor and the new car, feed the kids, pay the mortgage. Um, so I always want people to be successful in what they plant and grow. Um, and that's I always feel bad when a crop doesn't work, whether it's because of the weather, they planted it wrong, or something went wrong. So I always try and do my best to make sure they're getting it the right time and the right variety so that they've got a much better chance of being successful with it.
Mm.
And like I
Well,
said, I wouldn't let somebody buy Celosia plugs in September unless they lived in South Texas and had high tunnels. I wouldn't
right.
let them do it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and I think that's an important distinction to be made with depending on who you're sourcing your product from.
Right.
Yeah. Well, one of the things too, I was talking with you were talking about we were talking about this weather issue and the time of year.
Yeah.
I was really surprised. I did a live with Lisa on
Hmm.
Saturday, and she was talking about how early she's planting sunflowers now, or like how
Yeah.
forgiving they are on the cold side of the year, like that.
Yeah, she does
Um,
get them out really early in the spring. She's doing transplants, so she's got a little seedling to put out. And she watches the weather. It's gonna be really cold. She'll hold them in the tray a week longer. But she gets them out there. I don't remember her date. I want to say it's the end of March where she's at. She's a warm zone 7B, maybe even 8A. And she pushes it both directions, spring and fall. She's got some sunflowers that are just budding up now, getting ready to bloom. And it's, the right now, the first week of October. And she could get a frost any day or in the next few weeks. But she does a late planting. So just extend that season. And sunflowers are cheap. You plant 1,000 seeds, it only costs you about $30 a seed. It's a gamble that can be worth it because that 1,000 seeds can be worth, $3,000 or $2,000 if you sell them for
sure.
$2 each. So it's worth it to uh, play with the frost dates, spring and fall, and try and get things extended a little bit longer. An extra couple of weeks can make a big difference. Same thing this time of the year. If you can have a light frost and then they're expecting another 2 weeks of warm weather, it's worth it to go out and protect your dahlias because you might be selling $1,000 worth of dahlias a week. And if you got to spend $200 to protect them, it's worth it because you're going to sell another couple $1,000 worth of dahlias until it freezes again hard in 3 or 4 weeks.
Right. Yeah. I know. We're supposed to be getting a hard frost here this weekend, and my dahlia supplier that we've been using here locally, I think we're thinking it's going to be over, and I'm really sad about it.
Yeah. Dahlias are one of those ones that you miss them when they're gone because you have such a glut of them in September and they're so great. And then all of a sudden, 3 weeks later, it's like, nope, it froze. They're done.
Yeah. Well, one crop that I'm going to spring on you here that
Okay.
I wish I saw more people investing in, and that is mums.
Yeah.
There's so many incredible mums out there that I think make great cut flowers, and the South American farms don't touch them for whatever
Right.
reason. Um, and this is the time of year I would think you'd order them for the fall or for whenever.
Well, you'd be ordering the plants later this year to plant next June for flowers in late September into October and early November. There's the problem is there's not many options of places to get mums. King's mums out of Oklahoma.
Hmm.
They have a lot of what they call heirloom mums. They're older heritage varieties, really interesting, neat looking plants. But it's just a family business. And I know this spring they were stretched so thin that they literally would not take an order unless you'd bought them in the past year or two because they just didn't
Mm,
have the capacity to root more cuttings. Because what they do is they grow stock plants. And then when you place an order, they root those to ship that week. They don't have thousands and thousands of cuttings. They grow all their own stock plants. It's not like a company that order another, 10,000 cuttings from some cutting farm in Ethiopia or somewhere else in the world. Plus, mums can't be imported. I don't know if you know about because of chrysanthemum white rust. Can import the flowers in South America, but can't import the plants from anywhere. So all the like King's Mums grows their stock plants in Oklahoma, Ball, and all the fall mums you see, they're all grown in Florida in big farms that grow nothing but mum cuttings. And we started this year with Ball where we actually used what is typically a pot florist mum
Hmm.
and grew them out as a test crop last year to farm and came with 30 varieties that work as a cut flower. We sold them to people this spring. And I know the grower who did the trial last year was thrilled with them. And it's about time for people to start having the ones that they got from us this season to start blooming. We sold like 50,000 of them. So there's lots of mum plants out there this fall, all across the country, and hoping to hear some good reports back from people any day now that their mums did great. So we'll have those again for next spring. That's an alternative to the heirloom type mum. Some of them are just the typical cushion mum or the spray mum like you might see from South America,
Right.
but they're grown here in the U.S. and they're not ever been in a box and out of water for a week.
Exactly.
So
Well,
that's an option for people too.
I think that's awesome. I'm just glad to hear that there's some energy being poured into it,
Yeah.
because I know that with everyone who doesn't want to use import flowers, and this, especially this time of year, that's just such a great flower for the colors, the textures, and the size.
Phase life, everything, right?
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's exciting. Well, I'm really
Yeah.
glad to hear that. Do you think they'll are they still, are we still kind of in the test phase of that? Like,
Oh no, we'll keep doing those same. It was 30 varieties. We'll have those again for next spring, and we are testing 40 new varieties. So we should be adding quite a few new ones, and that information will be out in December. Early December is one of the results of the test, and we got to check availability from the stock plants in Florida that they have enough cuttings for the certain varieties, and we'll go from there. But in early December, we'll have that information out.
wow, that's exciting. 40
Yeah,
more varieties. That's,
up to 40 new ones. Yeah,
yeah,
I'm going there the first week of November to check them out at the farm in Virginia and see how they did.
that's
Looking forward to it.
incredible. Yeah, absolutely. I'm kind of curious too. Um, when people are starting to, I mean, so much is happening right now. People are tired, they're winding down from the busy
Right.
season, and here is all of the reps, and here's Dave, sending out the, I think I got my email with a list of everything you guys have,
Right.
and all the friendly reminders, and it's like, oh, I mean, we get this all the time too, like, when you call people up for Valentine pre-books and they're like, are you
I don't want to think
kidding?
about it yet.
I don't want to think about it yet.
Right.
Do you get that too?
We do. Yeah. There's always people who just, I'm not ready. I'm too busy. I'm out in the field all picking all day or trying to, beat the frost. They're just not ready to think about placing the new orders for next year. But like I said, with the plugs, you got to do it or you end up getting the leftovers. So you do need to take the time to place the orders. I had one customer today, it was raining where he was at. So he was able to go inside and place his orders today. So make the time for it. It's an important part of your business because if you don't order the product to grow next year's going to suck because you don't have
Yeah.
anything to grow. And if you don't have
Yeah.
anything to grow, you can't sell much.
Right. Or you'll be selling Twinkies. And
Right.
so,
Twinkies, yes.
yeah,
Or the wrong color Lysianthus or the wrong color of sunflowers or whatever, the wrong variety that you don't want.
sure. So do you, I always, I'm coming back to this, I think, because I think you touched on something. It does feel overwhelming, especially for newer growers, to sit here and map out, okay, I need this many plants to fit in this space. And trying to to put those big orders together and plan that out, because then because the next thing is, well, what week do you want it, right?
Right.
And then of course you're trying to be, pull your crystal ball out and figure out which week you want it because of, average frost dates and things like that. How, like, if I was a new person, we'll say I'm a new farmer calling you,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm like, Dave, I don't know what to do, help me. I'm thinking of Calgon, take me away, but I'm just
Right.
thinking, I'm thinking, where do you start? Where do you help someone start?
Well, first is to find out most people start out growing annuals. They're not going to start perennials the first year usually. They're doing the basic easy ones, the sunflowers, zinnias, celosia, things like that. And all of those are heat loving plants. So the
Hmm.
worst thing you can do is whether you're ordering plugs or starting your own seed is try and rush it and get them started too soon because nothing's worse than planting a celosia out when it's too cold. And even if they're not going to get frosted, if the soil's cold in the 50s and the nice is done in the 40s, they're going to get stunted and just sit there and not be happy. They want to go out in the heat of summer. So those kind of plants you don't want to plant until 2 or 3 weeks after your last normal frost date. Just don't push it. You're going to stunt them by putting them out too soon. But on the other hand, you have cooler flowers, things like delphinium, larkspur that you could direct sow in the fall or even early spring. Other plants can take it cooler and can go out a little bit earlier. So you need to know what your the crop, whether it likes it warm or cold, and then plant accordingly. Some of the things like the sweet dianthus, they can take a cooler. Lisianthus likes a cool start. So Lisianthus, I always like to say, plant those 2 or 3 weeks before your last spring frost date. If you're going in the field and if you're going in a tunnel, which is where I recommend Lisianthus do much better in a tunnel, is to plant them even 4 or 5 weeks before your last frost date. So if your last frost date is May 1st, go back to the last week of March, and that's when we want to plant those Lisianthus in a tunnel, because that long, slow, cool start gives you much bigger, better flowers when they do bloom in the summer.
Now, if I place an order and I say I want to receive my Lisianthus the last week in March, and all of a sudden it's monsooning or whatever, we can't get it done. Is there any buffer on your end that people can adjust, or is that when you like start to like?
Yeah,
No.
no, because
Okay.
some of these growers, the plug producers, their greenhouses are so full, it's scheduled that these 300 flats go out today, and we got 300 more to go on that bench tomorrow, and they
Sure.
really can't hold a plant. Plus, something like Lisianthus should never stay in the plug tray. Celosia should never stay in the plug tray too long, because they get root bound and it just ruins them, and they just don't take off like they should.
Right.
So you
Well,
got to
that
deal around it with monsoon.
yeah. Well, and that brings me to my next question. If you get all your, let's say you get your, I don't know, let's say you get 60 flats in and you're busy. How do you prioritize that? Because that's a great point. Some
Yeah.
things can stay in the plug tray a little bit longer than others, I think.
Right. And I don't know if any list that tells you what, but basically nothing should get really root bound in the plug tray. Lisianthus should bear priority for 2 reasons. Doesn't want to be root bound, plus it's probably the most expensive plug you're buying. So you want to get those planted out and take good care of them. Celosia shouldn't get root bound. Sunflower shouldn't, but you shouldn't be buying sunflower plugs. If you're going to do plugs, start your own sunflower plugs. Just get the trays and do it yourself. You shouldn't buy them. Besides the fact they usually get damaged in shipping. But just to get the things that need to get in early in, some things can wait. Like a Gomphrena doesn't mind being a little root bound. Straw flower is usually a little more forgiving, although those can also take the cool weather. Surprisingly, straw flower can take frost, both in the spring and the fall. You get a light frost in October, everything else is dead and crispy. The straw flowers are still going. So it takes a hard freeze for those to die.
Do you feel like are people planting straw flower more seasonally specific, with more of the autumn tones for the fall, or vice versa?
If they're doing succession planting, yes, more of the fall colors for the fall. If they use them fresh, if they're drying, which a lot of people do it both fresh and dried, then they would just plant all the colors, just dry everything.
Oh, that makes sense.
But you can plant. I always say that with like celosias, plant in the springtime, plant the yellow and pinks and the lighter colors. You don't want a pink celosia blooming in October. Nothing's worse than pink coxcomb for October 1st. So you want the reds and oranges and yellows for the fall. Same with your zinnias. Your later plantings should be more fall colors, no more pink, no more white, no more purple, not the lavender. You want the darker autumn colors blooming in the fall. And with sunflowers, plant some of the bicolors to bloom in September and October. They're not such a big sell in June and July.
Right. Well, and I want to go back to something you said earlier, and some of that depends on your market and who you're selling to.
Yes.
Because you'll still find, I mean, like I'm still getting requests. Here it is October for champagne and pink and peach, colors that, you'd think we'd want more color now, but yeah.
Right. But those are most likely for weddings, not just to stock somebody's flower shop. Right.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's where the bride's wants that champagne and peach no matter when she gets married.
Sure. And now it's getting to the point where burgundies are the same way. It used to be you only saw that in the fall. Well, this past spring, we had so many people that wanted burgundy, and it's kind of like these fall bouquets, or what feels like fall, in the spring. It was interesting.
Yeah, well, burgundy dahlias are big, have been for a couple of years and still are.
Huge. So, since it's been a little while since we've chatted, anything new and exciting coming out that we should all know about?
As far as cut flowers, well, another crop like the mums that are not growing that much is Alstroemeria.
Yeah.
And about 4 or 5 years ago, I was still at Glockner. Glockner had started to get some that was called Garden Jewels from a company in Holland. But then that company decided they didn't sell enough and they just stopped selling them. The genetics are gone. They're not there anymore. But we've got from a new company, it was not a new company, but another company getting some Alstroemeria that work as cut flowers. There's a pink, a yellow, a red, and we'll have that information for ordering next spring sometime in or late October, you better place the orders for those. So that's something new. Alstroemeria, you think of it sometimes as that cheap flower that comes from South America by the truckloads, but locally grown, it's just totally different. You can sell it when the buds are about to open, and it's just great vase life, long lasting, nice flowers.
Sure.
And it blooms all summer.
That's what I was going to ask you. Does
It's
it
a rebloomer. That as soon as you cut it, it keeps putting out new stems. If you don't cut it, it doesn't rebloom as much. But because you keep cutting it, it keeps putting out new flowers all the way up until frost.
So the same plant just keeps putting out.
Keeps putting out. Yeah. So you get dozens of stems off each plant.
Wow, that's amazing. Well, that's a cool one. Anything else?
There's a bunch of the Japanese Lisianthus from the company called Sumika. It's a Japanese breeder that does vegetables and started doing Lisianthus. I don't know how many years ago, but that's the only cut flower they do is Lisianthus. Other than it's all vegetables. And it's a lot of the really double full frilly flowers, interesting colors. They got one of the best if you want to do a red. It's the reddest one that's out there. But it's the seed is from Sumika. Ball sells the seed, and then several other growers sell the plugs.
Yeah, it's have you been to Japan?
No, I haven't.
Yeah, when you see that, I was able to go one time. They asked me to come, and I was visiting a bunch of Lisianthus farms, and I'm like, it's insane, the varieties.
It's like their national flower, I guess. They've just they've done all the breeding on it, as far as I know. Just done breeding on it for years. And I'm like, just the Sumika catalog. They've got there's one variety called Celeb, and they've got, I don't know, 24 different shades and colors of this one variety called Celeb. It's just insane the number of varieties you can grow in Lisianthus now. And I remember 25 years ago when it was a new cut flower and there was purple, white, and pink. And that was the only option.
Yes. I totally feel that. Yeah. And it was a big deal. It was a big deal to get a white with a purple edge or a white with a pink edge.
And I'm sure now, being the wholesale industry, you probably get overwhelmed with all the different options there are to carry, to buy from growers and sell to them. It's hard to keep track of them all.
Yeah. Well, I had a farm reach out to me. I don't think I said this already, but reach out to me, and it's the one who did such a great job this year. And she was like, what varieties do I want? Well, because I have access to some of the information like you put out and other people put out, I was giving her a list. And as I was going through it, I'm like, gosh, so many of these start to look alike at some point.
Right.
And I said, well, I understand that I'm telling you a yellow, and there's like 3 different ones here. And I'm like, whatever is available, the time of year and all that. Right. And I also know that, some of these newer varieties probably don't have the depth of inventory that some of the older ones have. So anyway, we'll see what happens.
Yeah. But it's like, all the different seed companies, they all have their best, I'm thinking bedding plants, they all have their best red petunia, they have their best red geranium. But you got, 8 different companies saying they have the best red geranium, and side by side, you can hardly tell the difference. It's the same thing with the Lisianthus. There might be a Sumika, there might be a Sakata, there might be a Taki. Their purple Lisianthus is the purple Lisianthus. They're all going to say theirs is the best, but sometimes you can't tell the difference once you put it in a sleeve or in a vase.
It's really true. You really can't. And that's where I think it's important to really, again, it goes back to focusing on perhaps some of the different colors and and in the end, if it's a pretty double, if it's, it's going to all blend together at the end of the day when you have it. And usually you cut it at the right stage, people are going to go, wow, and they'll be amazed by it. So,
and the local Lisianthus just is so much better than the imported stuff. I mean, I can remember a year or so getting imported stuff and it lasted 5 days, and the local stuff, it's still kicking 2 weeks later.
Yeah.
Still going strong.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things I want to touch on just briefly, because I see a trend in this, and I don't see a big enough trend. Like, I want to push some people in this direction.
Okay, I'll help you.
Okay, thanks. Is more foliages.
Yes.
I had a grower come up to me today about 9-bark, and he was like, what varieties to grow and these different things. And actually, he took your course. And so we were having a conversation about this. And I was telling him, well, because he was on the fence, and I'm like, well, the great thing about 9-bark to me is you can cut it in flower, even though it doesn't hold real long. You
Right.
can cut it in fruit with the berries. You can cut it with foliage in the fall. You can,
Yeah, it's all season you can cut it. Yes,
yeah.
it's a great plant.
But I was just curious if there's any new things you see on the horizon or other things that,
Um,
yeah.
Proven Winners has always come out with some new shrubs. Like they always come up with perennials. So they have some of the newer 9 bark, some of the newer smoke bush where they come out with them. So there's new varieties out there. You just gotta make sure they're big enough for cut flowers, because some of the newer stuff is more compact and you end up getting a really nice plant. Might be neat looking leaves, but each stem's only 8 inches long. So you got to make sure it's one that's going to grow tall. But back to your that not enough people grow foliages. I always like to tell people that, you probably realize it too. A retail florist uses probably 30%, 30 or 40% of what they buy is not flowers. It's the different, whether it's ferns, eucalyptus, 9 bark, they're buying foliage. And a lot of growers just don't grow enough of it. They forget, I need to sell that stuff along with my other flowers. And it can be annuals, it can be perennials, it can be shrubs. They all fall in that, foliage category.
Right, right. Anything else out there that's like new?
As far as foliage, actually, there is one that it's actually a basil
Oh yeah.
called Thai Towers. Thai, like the Thai basil, smaller leaf. I can't remember if it's just Thai Tower or Thai Emerald Towers. I can't remember. I should know because the seed is from Pan American, which is a Ball company. But I have one of them growing here. That's in sample plants. It is 3 feet tall. It's been growing since June. Has never put out a flower. I had it last year too, and I did some vase tests, and they lasted in the vase until they started to root. So it's a foliage. It's called Thai Towers, and I tried to get people to buy it this year, but there was no seed available. But there's plenty of seed for next year. It's one of those things you think it's all great, tell everybody to buy it, and then I found there's no seed available till like October this year.
How frustrating.
But Thai Towers basil, I think it has that aroma of the basil, of the Thai basil, and a great foliage filler. The only thing with basil though is you usually don't put it in a cooler, so you got to be careful of that. You wouldn't put it. You don't want to make a bunch of bouquets, put them in the cooler overnight, and find out the next day they turn brown.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit different as far as using. Just don't keep it in the cooler, but it's a great filler and it smells great.
I'm wondering, I was at the University of Georgia Trial Garden, and they had a variety, and I don't know if it was the same variety, but it's very columnar. It's like very.
We would have done samples of them. It was the same one. They have both the Italian type, which is called Emerald Towers, which is the big leaf, and then the Thai, which has a smaller leaf. That would have been the same ones. Really tall, skinny, no flowers, just really tall and skinny plant.
And you can cut like long side branches off of it.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
Amazing.
It works great. But again, the only thing is you can't put it in the cooler, but it's a great filler. If you're the kind of place that makes the farmers market bouquets at the market or the night before and just don't put them in the cooler, it'd be great for that. Or if you're selling direct to the florist, just make sure your florist knows, don't put it in the cooler, treat it like a tropical, and it'll be fine.
Yeah. Well, and the thing I love so much about basil, I mean, I can just OD on it. To me, when you've got a bouquet for like the market, or even if you're doing design work, that fragrance just draws people in. And a lot of times you may have all these flowers that have no fragrance. But you have basil.
Yes.
You put the basil in there and it's like people just can't get enough of it.
And people instinctively pick up a bunch of flowers, a bouquet, and smell it. and if you smell the basil, whether it's the Thai basil or lemon basil, it gives an aroma that they'll smell something. Because otherwise, you pick up a normal bunch of flowers, like Gerbers don't smell and zinnias don't smell. Lisianthus doesn't really smell. There's no scent to them.
Right. Amazing. So I always, we always like to end with a piece of advice. And I can't think of anyone better to ask a piece of advice from than Dave Dowling. So Dave, anything you got to share with us?
Advice in general.
Yeah.
Well, I always like to remind people you don't make any money growing cut flowers. You make all the money selling them. So make that a big part of your business is your marketing and your selling. You can spend all day in the field growing it, but you got to spend time either behind the computer, the phone, or on the truck selling it, or you just have a lot of pretty flowers in the field. That's a really important thing to remember.
Absolutely. Well, Dave, I hinted at it earlier, but why don't you tell us? I know your course it releases in June, so we're a good 9 months. But I know there's a waiting list, so why don't you can go ahead and sign up for it? So go ahead and tell us about your course.
Yeah,
so we can.
I do a course with Lisa Ziegler at the Gardener's Workshop, which is thegardenersworkshop.com. And it's a course called Bulbs, Perennials, Woodies, and More. And it's basically a 6-week course online. You have access to it forever. It does 2 weeks on different bulb crops, 2 weeks on perennials, 1 week on woodies, and the last week is on structures, whether it's shade structures, tunnels, greenhouses, just they're very basic on that. But if you go to thegardenersworkshop.com and look at classes, you can sign up to be on my mailing list or my wait list. So you get reminders when it's time to register for the class. But also the Gardener's Workshop is a great website. She's always doing some Facebook Live, Instagram Live, something that's teaching growers, whether it's a new person starting or an established farm. Like somebody said the other day, one of hers, you always learn something new every time you listen to Lisa. And it's the same thing. You just go to her website. There's always something to see. She does a class. I do a class. There's a couple other ones on greenhouses, selling to florists. Plus, she has some quick available anytime classes. One really good one that's on growing amaryllis and potted bulbs for Christmas and the holidays. That you can just get that anytime and watch it, and sell pretty potted amaryllis and paper whites and stuff.
Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
Totally agree.
Lisa has the classes, but she gives off a lot of stuff for free. So it's definitely a website worth going to.
Mm-hmm. And I know a lot of times people, it was so funny because the farmer that I was talking with, Larry, I'll do a shout out to Larry. Hey, Larry. When he was taking the course, he was all nervous because it was like, it's such a busy time of year for him. Right. And so I think he kind of tried to go through it, but now I think he's really going through it. And that's the one thing that's great about these courses. And, if it's not convenient, they're only offered one time a year. So even getting it when you can get it, and then going back, you have it forever. You can always go back and go through the course at your own pace. So.
Yeah, I hear people that are out in the field and they're going to plant some perennial and think, well, how far apart do I plant these, or how deep do I plant them? And they'll pull out the phone, bring up the app, and find that class and say, okay, it's supposed to be 18 inches apart, and then they'll go about planting for the day. They didn't have to go inside and look in a book or find it. It's in their back pocket in their phone, because everybody's got the phone in their back pocket.
I mean, how much more convenient can that possibly be? That's awesome. Well, also I want to would you mind sharing like how we're going to put links for our episode to everybody to connect back to you and everything. But I also want you to share your, what's the best way for people to connect to you?
Yeah, they can always send me an email at ddowling@ballhort.com. But if you want to just set up an account with Ball so you can order the stuff through them, you would contact the Colorlink office, which is 800-686-7380. And they can set up the account over the phone.
Awesome. That's great.
Yep.
Dave, thank you so much again for being on the Flower Podcast.
It's always fun. Happy to share some information with you guys.